Young men speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
Bang. I get so much enjoyment out of that opening song. We need to do more sea shanties. Yar. Indeed, sir. Yar indeed, Ixnay. Excellent. Yeah, it's been an up and down week, but we're gonna talk about signals. It's gonna be fun. I know I did a recorded video on this actually probably years ago at this point. And talked about this in other contexts. Fortunately, we have our Sam Pell. We have our Muppet Cup. Have you considered? You should. If you haven't considered, you should consider. And of course, that has some Sam Pell in it. And get some delicious tea here. I believe that's Happy Tract because my stomach is not happy. So that's supposed to make it happy. From Table Rock Tea, of course. Table Rock Tea is the best. And we've got our captain's mug. Ah, yes. Yes, that's my special turmeric tea. It's quite good. Quite good. I didn't put any honey in it, but that's okay. It didn't need any honey this time. It'll be fine. So, yeah, let's get started. We've got our favorite book right here, at least favorite book for the stream. Let's see what we have in store from Mr. Nassim Taleb. Suckers think that you cure greed with money, addiction with substances, expert problems with experts, banking with bankers, economics with economists, and debt crisis with debt spending. That is true. And boy, do we have a lot of suckers in the world, mostly because they're getting their signals confused. And I think that is very apropos to what we shall be discussing. I think probably what happened was my soon-to-be aired interview got pre-aired to their members because one of my videos just like completely the last video I put out just completely exploded this morning, and I was like, "What's happening? Why did I get so many views on this video overnight? And look at all these subs that just showed up." So it should be lit when the video comes out, probably in 3 days, 4 days, something like that. It'll be out soon, maybe Sunday. Yeah. Yeah. So that was interesting, and I think I'm still recovering from that stupid cold, but that will not stop the train. Signals are important. And I think people are really confused about the signals that they're seeing given what's going on in the world today. It certainly seems like people are very confused about signals and how they work, and they can't differentiate knowledge, information, and signals, which is really important. And so they're confused, and they're confused about things like human variation. So we can't all see the same things. That's just reality. We don't all see the same number of colors. I mean, my father's red, green, blind. Funniest things in the world are, testing that hypothesis over and over again because he actually can't see red and green as different colors, and it's just I grew up with it, still blows my mind. Just completely blows my mind because I can't go there. I can't go there. I'm like, they're pretty different, but he can't see them. And so I grew up understanding that people see the world vastly differently from me, and that that is a possibility, and that it's hard to tell. Like, you can't look at somebody and know if they're red, green colorblind. It's not possible. So those signal is not there. The the red signal or the green signal, I don't know which one, is not there, or maybe both. Maybe it's a new signal. It's not there for him. And that's like it's a rare enough condition, but there are a lot of people with that problem. And that problem scales up. And that isn't even necessarily what's going on when two people see a video and interpret it differently, because there is interpretation. And the thing is, because we mimic, we need signals, right? Signals are the thing that inform us what, what we're doing, whether we're accepting or rejecting. And because we have a personal, private perspective, we really rely on our own interpretations. We have to. We don't have an alternative way to deal with this. And because we're trapped in our perspective, the impact that signals have is to some extent unique to us. And again, worse, some people don't see things, like they don't have the capacity to sense these certain things. It's, eyes to see. Indeed. Indeed. And it's interesting too because, there's lots of different signals out there, but if you don't see hierarchy, if you don't sense hierarchy, if you don't accept the hierarchy as such, which is older than trees, as Dr. Peterson has said, all your signals will be equal, or at least you'll try to treat them as equal, whether they are or not. However, the words of any politician move the world more than the words of any entertainer. This has been proven time and time and time again. Why we're confused about this, I don't know, but people seem to be confused about that. Hierarchy mediates signal more than the medium does. And that silent authority, perhaps that's a topic for another live stream. If that's what you want to see, comment below, comment in the live stream, or comment when this is recorded, whatever. That silent authority moves you because the message from an authority carries more weight. It does more moving. That's to some extent part of what authority is. Authority is the thing that moves other things, right? It's the gravitas, if you will, of agency. And you also have to consider the strength of the signal is tied up in authority, not just, how you respond to it or whether or not you're going to respond to it, but also the strength of it. And strength is slightly different. And again, it's not equal between politicians and entertainers because of perceived power. So signals have power, right? Power levels. And that's different from your response because two signals at the same power level, one from an entertainer, one from a politician, the politician carries more weight. But the politician can also have a louder signal. Or the entertainer could have a louder signal because they can just crank up the volume. Doesn't have the same weight. There are signals of power itself. Entertainers are powerful because they have large audiences, but that audience doesn't carry the weight. So that signal of how many people are listening does not have the same impact if you're an entertainer as it does if you're a politician. And I'm trying to use the easy examples here that are kind of undeniable, where there's a lot of data that you can just go look at if you haven't already seen it, which maybe you should have. I think because we no longer have discernment, we are confused about these things in particular, these differentiations in particular. And when you try to destroy hierarchy or ignore it or whatever, you mess up your ability to interpret signal. Only for yourself, though. And the thing is, and we'll get into this more later, that doesn't work. And so when you build your worldviews, your theories of mind, your theories about how the world works based on equality, and you miss hierarchy, you just fall into conspiracy because the hierarchy causes an ordering. It's not the only thing that causes an ordering. The hierarchy causes an ordering that looks conspiratorial, right? It's part of where conspiracy theories come from, is people don't understand these concepts anymore, and fair enough, no one's talking about them except me. And so people are lost. They're being told things are equal or something stupid. And there's more to it than that, right? Obviously, it's not just signals, information, knowledge. It's also that, but framing. Because framing mediates information, right? So framing helps to determine not only what signals you see, because frames can filter things out, but how you interpret them. Two things, not one. The confusion of hierarchy, which leads to a confusion in difference as such, right? Because if difference is vertical, then, and you're confused about the hierarchy, then you won't see that difference. It'll be like you're red-green colorblind, except you'll be vertically colorblind or vertically blind, and then you won't understand certain things. And this is one of the things that leads to the crypto bros being confused, for sure, right? If you say you cannot buy a house with crypto, they'll point out how one person, who's not you or them, by the way, weird coincidence, managed to pull that off. But there's probably a lot more going on behind the scenes than somebody exchanging crypto for a house. And the thing is, it's still unavailable to you. So the fact that someone else can do it, who cares? Who cares? You're not them. You can't do it. It's nice for your wacky theory of money, but it's not nice for pragmatism. Like, it doesn't work in a reasonable way, we'll say, in the world. So what difference does it make? And that signal, you just shouldn't pay attention to it because it doesn't apply to you. You can't participate with an outlier signal that has nothing to do with you. It's just a technical problem. It's a constraint of the pre-created order. That inability to realize that some things don't apply to you, or maybe most things, or to others. Maybe some people are red-green colorblind, or maybe they can't think rationally, or maybe they're incapable of seeing the world outside of a binary, because lots of those people exist. That's a failure to discern where you end and other things begin. You think everyone's like you, or you think everyone's close enough to being like you. That's a load of garbage. It's not even possible that that would be true. Human variance is unbelievably large along all kinds of axes that you probably can't think about. Not just what colors you can see or what sounds you can hear, or whether or not you're double jointed, or how well you can listen, what your cognitive capacity is, what your cognitive load is, because those are different, right? Like there's all, I mean, it's endless. It's endless. It's absolutely endless from your perspective. There's so many things. There's so many variables in a human. When you stop understanding that, when you don't appreciate that, you can't discern where you end and other things begin. Not just people, but also people. And that's the loss of all boundaries as such, which is super dangerous. Like once you lose all your boundaries, man, the world is just a big flood of signals. And that's the ultimate confusion that can lead you only into domicide. Because there are no homes for you to have. Like it's not like, oh, you don't know where your home is or you don't have a home. It's like, no, there are no homes. It's not a possibility anymore because you don't have the discernment. And the thing is that, much to people's chagrin, signals are filtered by the outside world first, and then by your limitations second. So if you listen to the lamestream media, that's a filter. They're not going to tell you about certain things, like maybe Iran. I don't know because I didn't hear about Iran at all, much to the chagrin of guys like Peter Boghossian who think that Iran's all over X. So obviously, you don't know how X works, dude, because your timeline is determined by a lot of things, and my timeline doesn't have anything about Iran on it. I keep hearing something about Iran, but I don't know what the hell it is because none of my information sources are talking about Iran. And given that Iran has these little revolutions all the time, the fact that there's a revolution in Iran sounds like a Tuesday to me, but whatever. And then there's your limitations, right? And some of your limitations might be silly. Like you might think that because you're a cop, the rules of you have the right to defend your life against an imminent threat to it using a gun, if you have one in the United States, somehow changes when you're a cop. I got news for you. It doesn't. If somebody comes at me in a car and looks like they're going to run me over, yeah, I'm going to pop them in the head a few times, bro, if I have a gun. Yeah, that's going to happen. And it's legal and you can't stop me. And even if it wasn't legal, you still can't stop me. So that's still going to happen. I don't know what to tell you. But if you're limited in your understanding of how the world works, and you think, oh, people don't do that, or that's not a thing in the law, it is a thing in the law, you have the right to defend yourself, then that's going to filter out what the signal looks like to you. Because it's not combining with other signals like, oh, by the way, everybody has the right to defend themselves. Period. From any threat of deadly force. All right? Like, you don't have to wait till you die to defend yourself from the deadly force, obviously, right? So, but it's not obvious to some people. That's the problem. So even in a flood of signals, you only get a small amount of the total. And maybe some of the signals that you don't have are signals that you need to understand the world. Doesn't that suck? Yeah, we believe we can understand the world, like the whole world, like the whole thing, like any situation. Well, I can understand what's going on in Iran because I have a Twitter feed. What? No. Well, I believe I can understand Iran because I know somebody who lived there once. No. I believe I can understand Iran because I talked to 3 people in Iran. No. I mean, you may have better information than other people because you have more signals from more places, but it's a long way from understanding because it still signals information, which is subject to all kinds of problems, knowledge, and then understanding. And the thing is, we get so little signal because that signal is filtered already, and then we filter it again. And that's why we need more perspectives, more views of the same elephant from other people at the same time, because the elephant could move. So if you move around the elephant and the elephant also moves, maybe you didn't move at all. Oops. That's why we need other people. We need that cooperation. It's not an optional component of our existence. Cooperative processing is the only way to go. Other people have better signals. If I want to know about Iran, I ain't going to my Twitter feed because it ain't there. Other people's Twitter feeds have it. They have a different set of signals. Is that good? Is that bad? It is what it is. We got to deal with where we're at, not worry about where it could be if, especially with something like Twitter, because the odds that you're going to have any kind of impact at all on Twitter are approximately zero. Now, if you believe in the power of knowledge or knowing is half the battle, G.I. Joe, I grew up with that, or are otherwise stuck in the age of gnosis, where knowledge is propositions and they're the highest value, then have I got news for you. The flood of signals is here. And thanks to technology, you have access to more signals than ever. And none of them are under your control. Oops. And it's not just the internet. I mean, this happened with radio and TV before the internet. In fact, it happened with film before that, whether it be still pictures, right? Or moving pictures. All of these things had and continue to have an impact. So that's a problem of technology as such. It's not a problem of the latest iteration of technology that we call the internet. The internet has plenty of additional problems. And that's the thing we don't understand because we're very materialist right now, that more is not better. Not better. Floods are not good. Having access to signals from all over the place in places we don't live, and especially flat signals, because everything on the internet gets flattened to ones and zeros technically, but then can't be reinflated to the level of enchantment it had previously. That moreness of information, that moreness of signals doesn't make the interpretation of it, the information, any more correct or relevant. Even if I have a perfect picture of what's going on in Iran, there ain't nothing I can do about it. I have no plans to go to Iran ever. I don't know why I would. There are some reasons why I might want to, but why plan those when it's not available yet? And even if some revolution happens and they open the borders and they restore all the historical stuff that's trapped in that beautiful country, how long is it going to be before a trip is practical there for me? So even just knowing about it, having that signal doesn't really help. And being exposed to things uses up your cognitive ability, not just by keeping you busy, but also by keeping you busy, but by moving your energy away from important things and to things of uncertain importance. And the way this works is if you don't take care of the most important things first, you can tie yourself up in wondering if there's something of greater importance that you just don't know about while you're not taking care of the things that you could be taking care of in order. Sure, that order is going to change as you get new signals, form new information, and basically engage with new knowledge, but that has to go in order. And the order is the most important thing first. And signals are tricky because hearing a new signal makes you think that it's a new signal, but it might just be new to you. And there's a number of reasons why that might happen, right? You might grow older, and that reframes all of the signals that have come before. So if you get the same signal twice, 10 years apart, totally different interpretation, almost certainly. The first time you get a signal, you get a dopamine hit. The second time, you don't get the same dopamine hit. That's how drug addiction works, or all addiction, really. And this causes us to believe that we have more novel ideas, more novel insights, and more novel knowledge than we actually do. Not saying you have none, but certainly looks like you have probably several orders of magnitude more than you do. All because we do not understand signals. And when we don't have anything pushing back the concept that this is new, or that this way of understanding things is fundamentally different from the past, we fall into a deep narcissism. We believe our own versions of the world over maybe older, more correct and more carefully thought out versions of the world that were done by, we'll say, greater minds. And there's a larger issue here, for sure. For sure. There are two parts to your brain, if you will. And of course, there's lots of ways to conceive of this: left, right, front, back, old, new, slow and fast. Kahneman and Tversky, great book. Now, I don't believe in binaries, obviously, as I've stated in a billion videos before, but many people cannot think outside of the number two. They actually cannot hold more than two things in their head at the same time. This is Ben Shapiro's famous two things can be true at once. Right. If you have a binary, you're going to fall into opposition, and you're going to think opponent processing is a thing when, of course, it can't be. It's just insane. And you're going to get lost and confused. And a lot of people just can't hold more than two things in their consciousness at once, which is a huge problem. But for simplification and general understanding, we'll go with the binary: conscious and unconscious. Why the psychologists don't harp on this 24/7 is completely beyond me, and seems like intellectual dishonesty. Just going to tell you. Your unconscious picks up way more signals than you do consciously. It filters them, in fact. Oops. And because you're thinking on a different level of engagement, your unconscious has a list of things it's keeping track of, like breathing and heart rate, and whether or not you're hungry, and it doesn't need to move muscles, right? There's so many things going on. I'm sure I don't know half of them. I couldn't list them if I did. And the unconscious interprets the same signals differently, even when we'll say it passes that on. Why do you think trauma responses exist? How do you think post-traumatic stress disorder works exactly? They're unconscious. They're responses that are largely mediated by your unconscious or subconscious mind. And this is where something like psychology gets really tricky, right? Because on the one hand, we can bring the unconscious signals into a more rational consciousness, right? The conscious mind. And if done properly with the proper amount of help, that can really address some deep issues for sure. Like, absolutely, that can work. But the thing is, it's not very reliable. It's rare, it's hard, and it's tricky. And it requires giving up control and changing your worldview based on what another person that you're making into an authority tells you and shows you and hopefully demonstrates to you. If you listen carefully to Dr. Jordan Peterson's stories, a lot of what he does or did in his clinical practice was have people take actions to demonstrate the psychological principles he thought were at play. That's part of the magic of Peterson. Maybe I'll do another Magic of Peterson video based on that. But the thing is, doing that, going through that process creates all kinds of holes and other issues. One way you can tell that this is true is you can notice that predators love group therapy. Why? Because they can control the signals of people who are unable to control their own. It's a good match, well, for evil people, ultimately. And I'm not saying group therapy is bad, but there are some trade offs there for sure. And a strong group signal gives you good distributed cognition, right? But it's not a community, it's not integrated, hence the danger. And this idea that group therapy can help is true. It's better to be around people that you'll see as an authority because you believe they have gone through the same thing that you have. And that's probably mostly true. But predators hang out there because there's lots of vulnerable people and they know their weakness. And maybe they don't take advantage of that weakness, but they twist that weakness and use it a different way. Chances are, if you're an alcoholic or drug addict of some kind, there's certain other weaknesses you're also prone to. This is well written up in the literature, by the way. It's not something I had to make up or whatever. It's pretty clear. And the thing is, when you start to think that all the signals you get are deliberate or planned or intentional or even the result of another person, right? They're done by some kind of agent in the world. You become a conspiracy theorist, especially when you're just flooded with signals all the time because you're trying to make sense of them. And there's just too many for you to make sense of. And if you can't let go and say, "Oh, I don't know," if you're one of these people that, well, you've heard about this, so you must have an opinion on it, then you're kind of screwed because that means you think you should have an opinion on everything that hits your brain. That's this way lies madness, right? And it's not because of the signals, it's because you think you can put them together in a proper way that you can have some understanding of them. In other words, conspiracies are created by you. That's not to say that some of your theses about 9 men in a dark room with cigars are not accurate, but it's an accident if they are. We never count the times we're wrong, or if somebody else is wrong for that matter. And it's a big problem nowadays because people are being told over and over again and actually believe that they can make sense of the whole world, that maybe even that they have a world view. And that's a tricky phrase because, in one sense, you have a view of the world. That is true. But it is not a world view. It is a view of the part of the world that you have. Part being the operative term. So once you understand that you only have access to a small part of the world, your worldview is a view of a small part of the world instead of you having a view of the world, which again is kind of accurate, but kind of misleading. And I think people get stuck there, right? They get kind of stuck on that. So, wow, that's a lot, right? It's a lot. And what are we to do with all of that? Well, the first thing to do is to curate your signal. And that's what my original signals video was all about, was curating your signal, right? Among other things, we'll say, but curating your signal is an important component. So you should watch that video for sure, especially after this one, because super important. So as I said, like this is a lot. And what does it mean to curate your signal? What what does that entail? And the thing is, the whole curate your signal thing is not even mine. I stole that from Matthew, who was on the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord server probably about 6 years ago, right? Um, and it's sort of harder to say what curation looks like because it's different for everybody. But it's not think for yourself. It's not anything to do with knowledge or your personal private experience or your personal private perspective. This is how I see the world. No one cares. Or novelty. So if those are the things you're keying off of, you're not curating your signal. Don't curate off of novelty. Don't curate off of your personal private perspective. Don't curate off your experience. That's all limiting. The curation you need to do needs to be oriented properly. Because the signals that you pay attention to bias you. Caring about things far away will change your bias to care about things you have less control over. And that is a form of possession, or if that word's too much for you, you don't like that word, a set of behaviors that looks and acts like the description of possession. Your bias doesn't control you entirely, but biases have consequences. They force constraints. If you are around positive signals, if you're around beauty, if you're around higher things, then your bias will be up towards that which is pleasing and embedded in hierarchy. You don't obtain a state of no bias. That is the secular paradise of objective material reality, which does not exist, by the way. Handy to know. And even if it did, Einstein proved with relativity theory that it's useless. You need only be properly oriented in the pre existing created order. It pre exists because it was here first, not you, not your consciousness. Consciousness exists within pre existing created order. Isn't that nice to know? Now that you know more about signals, you get a bonus. Not only can you start to see signals properly in others and connect them to what's happening or has happened, you can pay attention to what signals you are sending out. You got to curate your outgoing signals, not just your incoming signals. And many times we don't get the results out of other people or out of things we're doing in our life because we don't know what signals we are sending. I've told this story before, but I will tell it again. It is a good story. Back many, 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 many years ago, billions of years ago, when I was on the dating sites, Plenty of Fish and sites like that when they were big, I would see a number of females advertising on the site for men. And they would say things like, I have my own home. I have my own car. I have my own career. And some of them would even be so bold as to say, I'm not going to cook and clean for you and stuff. And then you'd read some of their updates to their description. Like, I don't want some lazy couch dweller smoking pot. That's not what I'm looking for. And so that was the sort of man she attracted. And it's a small number, it's a small surprise why when she said she didn't need him for, well, almost anything. Kind of doesn't leave a lot, does it? Also, very attractive to leeches. Like, I have everything. You should come here and leech off me. That's why you weren't getting good men. You weren't asking for them. You were kind of saying, "Hey, leeches, come and leech off of me." Well, that's what you got. No surprise there. So why are you surprised? So it's good to have the humility to say, "Hey, what signals am I sending out? What am I getting? Is that because of the signals I'm sending out? Probably. Probably." And now you have the ability to pay more attention to that, hopefully. Even if you don't fully understand it, the understanding can come with time and observation. And effectively, this idea of signals is a superpower. Once you see it, you gain a bunch of control over it, or at least some very important aspects of it in your own life. And simultaneously, you gain an insight to the world around you and what people are doing and why they're getting the results they're getting. Maybe you're looking at what signals do successful people send out. Maybe I could send more of those signals out, right? Stuff that you never had before. Paying attention to the individual signals instead of paying attention to, well, politically, this is why this is happening. No, signals is more powerful than a political frame or an economic frame. And the thing is, signals are very low level, which means you're starting in a better place. It's signals, information, and then knowledge, and then understanding. And that's right. Don't start with knowledge or information, start with signals. Recognize that information exists and how it's mediated. And remember that knowledge is only built from your participation, your actions in the world. And this upgrades your ability to easily see what is going on around you and orient yourself properly. All right. That's all I have on signals for the Signals live stream. I hope you liked it. Ixnot, hierarchy is greater than medium. Hierarchy is the message. No. Don't confuse the message with things that aren't the message because they're not called message. T is the message. Yes, Sally, T is the message. Ixnon, was it Flock of Seagulls that said I ran so far away? Yes, that was the joke. Sally, most people have no idea the signals they are sending out. Exactly. They don't know they exist. To be fair, they haven't even been pointed at signals. They have no chance of knowing what signals they send out. Or worse, the signals they receive is to send out bad ones. Yeah. Well, and we mimic a lot of stuff. So a lot of times we're just mimicking bad signals all over the place. It's not good monologue as usual. Well, thank you, sir. I do appreciate that. I never know how well my monologues are going because you people suck at giving me feedback. So there you go. Now you have it. Except Ixnot, obviously, he's doing yeoman's work, which is good because he's a part. Also, I heard there was a bunch of catastrophe going on in Juneau, Alaska, around ice storms and snow and stuff. And I saw a bunch of boats capsized in the water last night. And I was like, what the hell? I've never seen a boat capsized by snow and ice. That's bizarre. So I hope Ixon is fine. I don't remember if he's near Juneau, but I don't think so. But shows you what I remember. So yeah, signals are important, guys. And once you kind of learn them, superpower of signals, it really kind of is a superpower. And it's good for you. Signals are good for you. They're delicious too. They're not as delicious as Happy Tracked tea from Table Rock Tea Company because nothing else is. But they are quite good. So yeah, any questions, observations other than my awesomeness, which I always appreciate? Hopefully people will be able to appreciate signals more and use them to their advantage rather than getting completely NPC'd by them all, which seems to be what's happening. People are just following like oh, this person who once came up with this super horrible framework that explained one specific instance well in my mind says this. And so, therefore, these people must have done no wrong, even though they were shot. Oops. And then new information comes out, right? And it's like, oh, I guess you were the bad guy all along, leftist scum. Yeah, they were always the bad guys, though. I don't know. Somebody at some point, someone's going to come to that conclusion. Hey, wait a minute. The Democratic Party, the party of slavery, was always the bad guys. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good job, genius. But yeah, they talk about the end of history. It's more like the beginning of history. They're all talking about the end of history. I'm like, you're describing the beginning of history. You're pretending history doesn't exist before a certain time period. That's actually what you're pretending. Like you're just flattening it down and saying this is what it was, but it is no longer that, which is kind of beginning history anew. What kind of a signal does that send that you're at the end of history? Hmm. Hmm. And what kind of a signal does your anger send? Yeah. And then, anger is an important signal, so don't not be angry, but just be appropriately angry. Right? I mean, you need contrast. Like you're not going to see the good stuff without the anger. That's for sure. It's hard to appreciate people when you don't see them angry. Ixnay, Juneau got a lot of snow and has avalanche warnings. Oh no. Now it's supposed to warm up and rain a lot. Oh no. Well, that's what I heard. I saw some disturbing pictures. So my friend has a worker out there, I guess, and he was busy saving boats, and so that was disturbing his workflow a bit. Not that he was unhappy about it. He's like, "No, go save boats. Sounds like that's more important than my business." So yeah, it was scary to see those pictures. I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" That's like, and it's boats, and I love boats, so I'm just like, "No, the poor pretty boats. Why? Why?" Yeah, it seemed pretty frightening. But it's far away and I don't need to worry about it. So my only concern was for Ixnay. That was it. I was like, "Oh, I hope everything's okay where he is." Because as I was explaining to my friend, Alaska is just one place to me. Like, wait, there's more than one like place within Alaska? Really? No. I don't think of it that way. It's like Canada. There's only 2 places in Canada. There's French Canada and the rest of Canada. The part that sucks. That's it. It's all my brain can handle. Canada is a gigantic binary, but Alaska is just one monolith. That's it. Pretty mountains with oil somewhere. That's the whole thing. Fanticate. I still can't quite understand. Oh, I like this. Understand the difference between signals and information. Are signals streams of data? No. And is information the meaning of data? No. Close. This is going to be shockingly easy because as it turns out, the words just kind of work. When you get signals, you put them in formation. Technically, that's what happens. Right. And so any kind of signal can be formed any number of different ways. And that I think is where people get confused. And also you can see the knowledge engine that is available on the markofwisdom.org website somewhere. I forget where. There's an article on it. And so, yeah, the signals come in from the bottom through your perspectival understanding, which puts signals in formation, right? And it has the qualities of frames, fluidity, capacity, and focus. See, I need to get back to doing the slides because I could do the slide on perspectival understanding and the slide on why memes are evil and all this other stuff. But yeah, the signals get formed, right? And that's actually why the longer and larger conversation that people keep using of education is garbage, and it should be talking about formation because you have to explain to small, unformed, weird children. It's almost like children are unformed adults or something. Might be something there. Who knows? Um, how to do that process. And of course, you're not good at it yourself necessarily, or you're better than they are, though. So might be important. And if you don't do that and you let random people in a school do that, it's a problem. Now, if you don't let random people in a school do that, then your child has a chance to fight back against the school. You don't need to homeschool. And that's not going to be true in all cases. There's always going to be extreme cases where, yeah, maybe you need to homeschool or do private school or whatever. But your child will be 1,000 billion trillion googlyplex times and orders of magnitude able to deal with school indoctrination if you form them at home first. And that is probably the larger and more prevalent problem in the world, rather than, we'll say, bad education or woke teachers or any of that nonsense. And I've given the example before. This happened to my buddy. He sent his kid to public school. They spewed out some climate nonsense. He stood up and he said that's a lie. Teacher threw him out. They had a parent-teacher conference, and he told the teacher, then if you're going to do that, you'll have to excuse him from the class, because he's going to stand up and tell you you're lying every time. And that's what they did. The problem solved. You don't need to get these complex, I've got to pay for public school or for private school. I've got to send the kid away to boarding school. You don't need to do that. You can just form the kid properly. And then when the teachers get pissed off because your kid is actually able to push back, you can tell them to F off and die, which is the correct answer anyway, because they need that negative signal, guys. And if they got it from enough parents, they'd just stop teaching climate change garbage, because they wouldn't have a choice. So, like, you all want to fix the world for yourselves, but you don't want to fix the world for everybody. Thank you, Ixnon. That is actually, that was my original question too. Took you a while, but thank you for finally answering, because I'm always a little bit worried because you're far away. I don't know what's going on over there. I just see these horrible pictures. So, Vanticate. So signals are the raw inputs. I mean, that's one way to think about it, I guess. And information is a result of the first processing step, formation. Yeah, that's a reasonable way to think about it. I don't like flattening it that much, but yes, it's true enough. And there's lots of types of raw inputs. That's the problem. There's signals aren't like one type of thing. There's lots of types of signals. I mean, I'm trying to think back. I think signal theory actually, and maybe even, is that even Claude Shannon stuff? Maybe. But like signal and frequency, like the difference between AM and FM, amplitude modulation and frequency modulation. Same signal, but not the same signal, right? And then the formation of the signal is either through amplitude modulation or frequency modulation, right? And then that gets formed further in, reformed. Like, you could do things like beam forming. I mean, it's so funny. I'm like, where do you people learn shit? Like, I don't get it. Like, I'm seriously confused. Like, if you just learn this stuff, like in the profession that it's applicable to, and granted, most people can't. Like, I'm ridiculous. I just learn really fast, and I have an insatiable curiosity. And I mean, I went to, where was I? I went to, oh yeah, we were at the damn library, at the other library, at the bigger library with more books. And I'm just like they had this reference section that had like every legal decision in South Carolina, volumes and like it's a wall of volumes of legal decisions. And I was just like, oh, let me take this. And I'm like, no, what are you doing? Like, and then I'm thinking back to the books that are in the tiny library. It's not really tiny, but the library extension down the street from the house. And I'm just like, oh, I got to go there and read these two books for sure. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, no, you don't have the time for that. And you've got books right there that are unread, that need to be read first. It's just, so most people can't do that. But if you actually looked into this, you'd realize all the words are correct and they're all right there. And they're all explanatory as to how this works. And it's all backed up by math and theory, all of it. all of it, and it's all backed up experimentally too. This is what puzzles me. Like, why is this confusing to anybody? I don't get it. This should be the clearest thing in the whole universe. So, yeah, I mean, you're constantly being bombarded by sights and smells and sounds and feelings. Some of those feelings, by the way, like if you're itchy, like that's internal. Sometimes it's not, but like sometimes I feel like a bug's walking up my leg and there ain't nothing there. And sometimes a bug's walking up my leg and I smack him off. I Some signals are purely internally generated. And you need to know that because that's not information, right? The information would be my interpretation that a bug's walking up my leg, when in fact there's nothing walking up my damn leg. I just have some random itch that I'm interpreting as a bug because it's a random itch and it's close enough, right? So the random itch is the signal, and the formation is my impression that there's a bug walking up my leg. And I apologize to everybody I just infected with that thought, but um and I like that happens to me all the time. So, because I'm super sensitive, like I hear things and I'm always trying to figure out what causes the sound. Very subtle sounds. Like we heard something in the house today, and I was like, either the house just settled or maybe a bird landed on the chimney in the middle of the house. Even though I have a small house, I have two chimneys. Don't ask me why. Um, I was like, oh no, that explains it. As long as I have an explanation, I'm cool. But also, like, I have a very deep understanding of these things. Like, I hear random noises in other people's houses and I can figure out where they came from. It's almost magic. People don't believe me, and then I do it, and they're like, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I just have really precise models of all kinds of things in my head, and I can map sounds back to actions pretty reliably for whatever stupid reason. Don't know. But it works and it's kind of cool. So I like it. Does that clear it up, Vanticay? I mean, you're close enough. Like I think you're probably there. But like that's the thing. The signals are the thing to pay attention to, not the information. And certainly not the knowledge, which is mostly illusory unless you're doing an action. Because that's the lower level thing. And that's why I don't get caught up in trauma bonding and PTSD, because those are information level ways of understanding a psychological process. But the proper way to understand that is not even as a psychological process. The proper way to understand that is as an unconscious response to a signal. And then all of a sudden it makes sense. And then you can understand how the psychological process works, because you're taking that signal that is unconscious, that the unconscious is filtering, forming, and causing a reaction for, and bubbling it up to the surface and rationalizing it so that you gain a different way of integrating that signal so it doesn't always translate into a bug running up your leg. Because if you don't know that, if you don't know every feeling you have is not externally caused, you don't know where you end and other things begin. And that's way more useful than knowing higher level things like information in general, like knowing signal theory or Claude Shannon's information theory papers. Not as useful as just knowing some signals don't come from you, or from the outside rather, they come from inside you instead. Like, oh wow, that means I don't have to react and respond to everything I feel. Right. Right. Doesn't that make me inauthentic? Maybe. I don't care. This authenticity thing is bullshit. So don't worry about it. Anyway. Yes, that makes sense. Thanks. Good. I'm glad that makes sense. I think that's the number one thing. Also, watch the earlier video. I know I already posted it. You can scroll up and find it. Watch my earlier video. That will also help. I know it's a much older video. I don't remember when that was. One of these days, I'm going to get that project done. Actually, I don't have to do that project because somebody else is doing that project. And I just kind of helped them along, although accidentally because the AI betrayed me. But I think it'll be fine. I think the AI betrayal will be fine. So look, if you want to talk more about this, you can come on camera. Oh, I like to try to stick to the topic, but if we don't stick to topic, that's probably fine. Because signals, I can tie anything into signals, so it doesn't matter. But there's the link if you'd like to hop in, and I will pin the link to the YouTube because I can only pin it to the YouTube because that's how these technologies are limited. They are constrained in a very real way. But yeah, I mean, I think once you sort of understand that lower level, it can help you to start dealing with yourself and stop dealing with all the other things going on. Because when you're looking at something like information or whatever you conceive of information to be or knowledge as valuable, it's like, well, the valuable thing is the signals, and that's where you need to pay attention the most. And the rest of it kind of takes care of itself, actually, because you can understand bad signals and deficits and then have other people help you and seek the right kind of help. So right now, a lot of people are caught in what they think of as knowledge, although it's just information, which is a different problem because we haven't differentiated those two things properly in our society either. Um, they think that what they're doing is getting knowledge from YouTube video, and then they watch somebody like Academic Agent who says invents this thing he likes to call ring psychology, and then puts everything in the framework of his idea of what wrestling was. And I'm like, okay. And yeah, I like it's not valuable. Like it can be useful, right? I mean, like even that frame can be useful depending upon what you're doing though. But the thing is, you get that framework explains something, then something else comes along and that framework doesn't explain it, and now you have to jump to a different framework. Like this is not helpful. Whereas if you're like, "Oh, these signals are coming in, and now I realize I don't have to pay attention to Nick Fuentes as a person, or maybe some of the horrible things that he seems to say, or whether or not he actually means them or is using them for entertainment. I don't need to worry about that. What I need to worry about are the things he's saying that are true, and not him as a person." But having that level of discernment or ability to differentiate is super important, but it begins with signals and information and understanding that difference, right? And then you go, oh, there's signals, there's information, and there's knowledge, which is only the result of participation or action in the world. Oh, okay. I see how this works. You're getting upgrades each time. Yes, things are changing. The number of variables involved is increasing. The amount of engagement is increasing. Oh, that's really important. Do you know what unconscious signals are getting filtered out by your unconscious that are causing you PTSD or something that looks like it? I don't actually like PTSD, but a lot of things look like PTSD. That's the problem. Sally Joe, how do you watch the signals you are getting to understand the signals that you are sending? Mostly you understand the signals you are sending by other people's reactions. But first, you need to understand what you're responding to, right? So once you understand, oh, I feel a bug running up my leg, but there's no bug. Huh. Oh, I feel sad, but what made me sad? Was it a thought that I had, or was it something that happened? And if it was a thought that I had, am I just remembering something that didn't make me sad when it happened, but should have? Ho, 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 ho. Ho, 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 ho. This is the Matrix, right? When he visits the Oracle, what's really gonna burst your noodle, or whatever she says, is would you have knocked over the vase if I hadn't said anything? Right, right. Sometimes we deal with something in the moment because our unconscious filters the signal, and then that signal reverberates and gets sent back to us later, and we just get sad. And we're like, why is that? And it's because of a memory and not because of some random emotion. But random emotion still on the table. Oh boy, yeah, it's very complicated. Vanticate, you tempt me to join the video call. Well, you're welcome to do that. Since that would allow me to send a signal not as flat as the one limited by, yeah, well, that's the thing. See, that's the other thing, right? Like you've already upgraded. Like, oh yeah, I see flatness now because ASCII typing, while useful and has aspects that can't be duplicated by being on a video. Like there's advantages to text that don't exist in other forms of communication. It's still flatter than coming on and being able to wave your hands and show how important things are and facial expressions and all this stuff. Right? There's lots of upgrades. Enchantment's a busy thing, right? Sally says, join the call, send signals, receive signals, help put them in formation. I like that, Sally. I don't like the upgraded Sally, though. It's kind of annoying, but that's okay. It's good for the world. It pisses me off. It really does. Like, I get quite a Ixnat will come on here and he'll just say something way better than I could. And it's all my stuff. And I'm just like, oh, so annoying. And Sally's been doing that now. Ethan does that. Ethan used to do that all the time. I don't know where Ethan is. He should be like, he's where Matthew is in North Carolina somewhere. Matthew's, I think, in Raleigh. I never got up to visit him. And Ethan, I don't think he has his house yet, but someday I'll go up and visit his house. I got to go visit my cousin at Chapel Hill in the spring here. So she's already mentioned she's interested in that. So I didn't know after last visit. You never know. And maybe the academic leftism is fading and people are starting to go towards sanity. This latest freaking shooting in Minnesota thing really has people wondering, like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And the meeker voices, whether I like them or not, are at least being less meek now. And that's a good thing because people need to strongly signal when things are wrong. And that's one of the things that hasn't been happening, right? If you're placating people by saying COVID and not fake news virus scamdemic, or at least something stronger than COVID, I got news. Like that's making things worse. We should not kowtow to the COVID lie. It was a lie and it's over. And it needs to be reiterated every minute of every day that was a vicious, evil lie. And it wasn't anything else at any point. Which is not to say that I did not stock up on rice in February of 2020. I was in Hawaii actually and saw somebody coughing. And because I listened to Tim Pool back then, I knew what was going on. And I was like, huh. And his advice was excellent. He's like, listen, buy extra food, be prepared. You can always eat the food later. Like there's no downside to eating food and then finding out that you don't need it because you just eat it anyway, which is exactly what I did. I also know that trick, but I appreciated that Tim Pool was saying all the right things in all the right ways to all the right people with all the right amount of caution. Why is my mouth not working? I need more tea. And the thing is, just like an antenna and a radio, you can orient yourself in relation to signals and get vastly different results. And that's what being better is all about, is orienting yourself, we'll say, correctly in the world. And being better is important because the world needs you. And in order for the world to be better, you need to be better. And that's actually all you need, because the thing is, you have the most control over yourself. So you can take the most action, have the most agency, and the most impact by doing things yourself that you can do to be better. And if you're better because you're in the world already gets better. It's not a magic trick. It's just a fundamental limitation of reality, that because you're part of the world, if you make yourself better, you make the world better. Doesn't sound like a bad thing. I know a lot of people are upset about constraint. Unfortunately, I heard Jonathan Peugeot and JP Marceau talk. It was a great conversation, actually, for the most part. And they were just like right in this constraint is tyranny frame. And they used the word tyranny. And I'm like, but you're not describing a tyranny. Like, I don't understand this frame. I told them that in the comment. Go and like my comment. Maybe they'll pay attention to it. I'm sure they will both read it. Actually, I know both of them. They both know me. So, but also like it. Tell them it's important. Give them the signal. Oh no, this is a good comment. Unless you don't like the comment, don't lie. If you don't like the comment, tell me I suck. That's fine too. Or downvote it. Sally, Joe, M. Cooper. What obscures the natural human capacity to comprehend signals? The fact of no one's differentiated it for people. No one's actually gone through the trouble to explain that there are signals in the world and that they are neutral. And that any negative signal can be turned into a neutral signal by your formation of it. Like, people just aren't aware of that. They haven't had their attention pointed low enough, right, to understand that. And that's part of why they don't know where they end and other things begin. Loss of community is part of it. You got to view community as an intimate experience of distributed cognition. And I've been hearing the word intimacy a lot lately. Yeah, they all took it from me. And I know for a fact that they did, but different problem. Not a problem, actually. I'm fine with it. But it's important to realize that community is an upgrade from mere group. And groups just form because people have something in common. Whereas communities, the interaction goes beyond what you merely have in common. Right? And that's what makes a community, is that it's not only about the thing you're a group about or with. It becomes about something more. Ixnon, the thing about constraint is that no one's stopping you from doing good. Exactly. No one's stopping you from being better, and no one's stopping you from doing good in the world in spite of constraints. There's always some good you can do in the world. Doesn't matter what the constraints are. It doesn't matter what the tyranny is. Sally Joe, domicide. Well, look, domicide is a result of not paying attention to signals, because ultimately, if you're looking at the world from a lens of knowledge, what ends up happening is you're too high up in the stack. Basically, you're looking at something too much higher than you. And people get confused because they think, oh, knowledge is something I have. I have knowledge of this. I have knowledge of that. It's like, no, knowledge is something you get as the result of an interaction, a participation with the outside world, not reading, by the way, or writing. You do not gain knowledge from reading or writing. Sorry, Dragon Common Room folks. I'm very sorry. Also, definitely can prove not true. Knowledge has to come from an action outside of yourself in the world with something that can push back on you that isn't merely you. In writing, even, the thing that pushes back on you is yourself, effectively. We can have long discussions about, but is it really only you? Doesn't matter. It's internal. You need an external feedback point to get knowledge, right? And then that knowledge is a function of an integration with the world and has nothing to do with what's inside your head. Because if you got that information, but it didn't come with a cost, with a friction, with a conflict, with an interaction with the outside world, even if it sticks around, it's not connected to anything. And so you don't have it, and it doesn't have you, and there's no intimate relationship, right? There's no quality relationship. There's no intimacy at all. And so it detaches you from the world. So you can think of it as the more information you have that detaches you from the world, the more likely you are to be in domicide. And that's why people who are autists tend to be stuck in this. And the thing is, man, you can run on information for a long time. You can run on this knowledge frame, even though it's not really knowledge, for a long time. In fact, you can run on knowledge for a long time. You can run on just more experiences and traveling and all that for a very long time, like well into your 50s and 60s. But that's not enough to sustain you. And that's part of the problem is this is more about long-term sustenance, which was interestingly should have been, in my opinion, the larger theme that you get out of the discussion that Jonathan Peugeot and JP Marceau had. And Sally Joe, I don't know if domicide is a result of not paying attention to signals. Well, it's one result of not paying attention to signals. I think it's not being able to tell good signals from bad. Well, that's the same as not paying attention to signals, in my opinion. Love my home, my people versus you are a failure if you don't get a college degree, yeah, and a big job. Yeah, I mean, those are more narrative enchantments about the future. And narrative enchantment is bad enough, and that video absolutely took off, which is fantastic. But there's something more significant going on with signals, because if you don't understand signals, the narrative enchantment's inevitable. This is why people don't push back on people who say ring psychology, even though it's sort of stupid. Or, Blue Church or whatever, like that Curtis Yarvin thing was dumb. He's admitted as much now, pretty much from what I understand, so fair enough. But also, boy, was that dumb. And how did you fall for that frame? And it's because it's easy to find a way to make a frame useful. It's easy to find a way to make a story useful, right? Because a good story has utility. But everything that has utility is not necessarily good enough. And the thing it has utility for might be evil, right? And that's part of the problem. The master race has a utility to it. It just turns out that it's evil. And it can't avoid that. Like, you can't redeem that, which is what people try to do even now. They're trying to do that right now. They're trying to say, well, yeah, but also these other things are true. And it's like, well, maybe, but a good story explains the sacrifice up front, right? It doesn't wait till the end. And maybe fables wait till the end to explain the sacrifice. That might be a good way to understand a fable. I have to think about that more. Or like a fairy tale. Fairy tales, maybe they explain that sacrifice doesn't come clear until the end. But most of the stories you hear, like, oh, I'm going to give you a description of how this works within the frame of Blue Church, or an explanation for how politics works within or a political style event works within the frame of ring psychology, right? And you can say, hey, an explanation is an upgrade from a description. They're both bad stories. That's the problem, right? Because they don't have any sacrificial component. They just have an explanatory power that's reliant on forms of enchantment that are tied up in how much comfort you feel in having things connected in a certain way that seems to give you a way to predict things. And that's the mess, right? And someday I'll do a video on different forms of enchantment. It's just so hard to do, and I have to remember to sit down and do it. It's a lot of work, but I don't care because Christopher's here to help me. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I jumped on. You had mentioned just now when a fable or fairy tale explains the sacrifice. So I was curious, when does Good Will Hunting explain the sacrifice?
Oh, see, you were supposed to remind me of this yesterday. It's a good point. We should post that whole thing. I do want to do the movie club thing, so we should set a date for that. Of course, my computer doesn't work anymore because Windows 11 changed something. Yeah, I mean, that whole movie, without giving away too much, is all about that tension of appropriate sacrifice. And actually, that particular movie is a third way movie, but it's very hard to see. It's so hard to see that although I'm sure I completely saw it, we'll say unconsciously for sure from day one, because it is the best movie ever, obviously. I didn't understand where it came from until I rewatched it recently, and then I went, "Oh my goodness, I totally missed what was going on here." And so, I do have a document that is all about figuring out what's in that particular movie, or really any movie. It should work for any movie. Let me see real quick. No, that's that other project. That's that other project. That was an AI project. That was fun. Nope, that was Gustav's little pet project. That doesn't help me. Yeah, so I do have the document. Oh, there it is. Excellent. So what we'll do is we will say anyone with the link can access this as a viewer, and we will copy the link. So anybody interested in doing the movie thing can grab this link, watch the movie, fill out the form. So you make a copy of this Google Doc, and then you have your own copy of it. And then you watch the movie and you pause the movie where appropriate to fill in the information in this document. Okay, it's full of examples from The Matrix, because that's pretty easy, ultimately. And I think I did a decent job of it. And it did get read by somebody else who said I did a decent job. And then that should only be 1 page if I did everything correctly. But if it's not, it can be 2 pages. It's fine. It doesn't really matter how many pages it is. But yeah, you can just make a copy of that Google Doc. And I'll update the description and stuff with this stuff too, and I'll post it on the Discord server. And then watch the movie and fill in the doc. And then when we do that, and then we got to decide if we're going to do it like as a live stream, or we're just going to do it on the Discord server, or what. And I'll also post this to the YouTube community tab and stuff. And then we'll go over the documents. We're not going to rewatch the movie or anything crazy. That's not the point of this exercise. But the point is that exactly what you're talking about with that sacrifice motif should pop out in the movie. And this format should, at least in theory, kind of help you see that. And also, of course, as with everything I do, there's a little bit of psyop going on there in terms of my filtering. Basically, because I want to know who can see stuckness. So that's not that hidden in the document. It's part of the questions. So yeah, we are going to do that movie analysis thing, whatever we're going to call it. We do need a name for it, like movie book club or like book movie club. I don't know. We'll call it something. But yeah, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, there's the document. I've had it done for a while. I just keep forgetting on the live streams to announce and all that. Things are going crazy. I had that stupid illness that I'm still probably recovering from, because apparently it's nasty and won't go away. But yeah, now everybody should have access to it. They can make a copy of that document, watch Good Will Hunting, and go through and fill that in while you're watching. Just pause the movie, do whatever you got to do. Watch it 2 or 3 times if you need to. I mean, I hope not, but if that's what you need to do. And then we'll set a time and figure out, and guys can leave me comments. Like, do you want to do this as a live stream? I'm happy to do that. Do you want to not do it as a live stream if you don't want to look like a fool? I'm happy to just do it on the Discord server or something. The Market Wisdom Discord server is suited for such things. And then we can figure this out together, because there's a lot of stuff that we could say and see. The goal is to see other people's perspectives. Like, I really liked the book clubs that I've been in, because I get to see all these other perspectives, things I never would have seen, right? I'm like, I didn't get that. I didn't get that at all. Language creation was a good one, although that's 40 freaking parts. We did Plato's Republic over on the Texas Wisdom community. If you haven't checked that out, check that out. And then I've done I did Moby Dick on Father Eric's channel, Eric Sites. You check that out. And then we're doing Flannery O'Connor stories now with Father Eric. You can check those out. And those are all good ways, like when you do a book club, especially with other people, you get a bunch of contrast, and that helps you to see signals better, right? Ultimately. But does that make sense that the tension in that movie is actually just around, we'll say, the choice of sacrifice?
Yeah, that makes sense. I do need to rewatch it and actually fill out the thing still. So
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I was
but
keeping this under wraps until now. So yeah, you gotta make a copy of the doc, rewatch, fill out the doc, and then whenever we pick the time for that, it won't be next week. I'll be in Florida, which means I'm behind on videos now because I gotta record at least one before I leave. Should have done one today, but still not up to snuff here. That's right. I got some shorts coming out, so those are pre-done. I just gotta release them. I'll release 2 shorts this week for sure, or maybe one tomorrow or Sunday or something, and then one later in the week, and hopefully I'll have a full video recorded that'll come out on like Wednesday or Tuesday or something. And then I'll be like right on the bleeding edge again because that's the way these things work. Lately, don't get sick in the winter. That's the key. Don't get sick. I managed to keep the Christmas holiday thing going pretty good. I only missed 1 week,
good.
which is a miracle for me, but man, I have just barely kept up since then. So hopefully I'll get another good day where I wake up at 6 a.m. magically and just do a bunch of work. So yeah, does that make sense? The sacrifice, and I'd have to think more about fairy tales and fables, but it might be worth differentiating myth, fairy tales, fables, stories, and going through all that. But I don't think a lot of people are there, and I really do want to focus people on signals, information, knowledge, understanding, because that's what leads you to be able to see enchantment better, I think.
Yeah, that does make sense. So
Cool. What else you got? Are you in Juneau? You're not in Juneau, right?
no, I'm not in Juneau. I'm north of there. So
Okay. All right. Cool.
Alaska is actually like big enough east to west to have 5 different time zones.
What?
So
No,
yeah.
nothing's that big. No. Alaska's just one place in my head, Christopher. You're wrong. It's just one place in my head. So one place can't have multiple time zones. Not how it works. If you really want a mind screw, go to Thunder Bay, Canada, because Chicago's in the central time zone and is east of Thunder Bay, and Thunder Bay is in the eastern time zone. And it just completely screwed me up. Because I was in mountain time.
Yeah.
I was in mountain time and I went east because I was at Sally Joe's. I was in Southwest South Dakota. And then I went east to get to Thunder Bay. And I was like, oh, I'll go one time zone into Central. But I went 2 time zones. And I was like all messed up. I did not know what was going on. I was completely confused about the world. And yeah, it was weird. I didn't like that at all. And I don't think I could handle 5 time zones. I don't even think we had 5 time zones. There's only one true time zone, Eastern. That's it. That's
Not
everything else
GMT,
is a
but
psyop.
Eastern, right?
Yeah, there should only be one. Vanticate. This document gives an interesting way of looking at movies. I'll check it out. Yeah, good. Well, join us. Join us for the event whenever I announce it. I'll announce it on the community page, the YouTube channel, and the Discord server, of course. I just got to get organized enough to pick a day and figure out if we're going to try to do it as a live stream or, and poll people, see what they want, that whole thing. So I just haven't done that. Maybe I'll do the poll. I'll set up the poll this weekend, and then we'll gather intelligence over the next week, and then we'll set a date for the following week or something, maybe Wednesday or something like that. Sally Joe, reading The Old Brothers Grimm with my 6-year-old, the best thing I've done as a parent thus far. Yes. Well, and yeah, like we stopped doing that, and people kind of point at it once in a while, and I'm like, no, you guys, this is way more important than you're giving it credit for. And then everyone's going, well, it's narrative this and narrative that. And I'm like, no, you're using the wrong word. That's not. The problem is story enchantment, not really narrative enchantment, although narrative enchantment is definitely a thing. But yeah, these things are so hard because we've been using the wrong words for so long. and too many quote smart people who aren't smart at all, told us bad things. Highly recommend the Old Brothers Grimm for kids or adults. Yeah. How about adults first? Like adults could learn a lot from fairy tales and fables and things like that. And if they understand a myth as a, well, for lack of a better way to say it to normies, meta story, a meta narrative, rather than something that's, we'll say, fictional versus non. I don't even like fictional versus non-fictional. It's totally incorrect. Because some stories are like, even some stories that aren't myths, I would argue, because I differentiate myth with, the technical scientific term is actually supernatural or extra natural. That's actually the technical scientific term. Supernatural being or supernatural force, then it's a myth. But stories that are, we'll say, meta true. I hate talking like this. It hurts my soul. Stories that are truer than true or something, even though they didn't unfold the way, in the world in like a historical fashion. Like they're not fictional. Like that's not what. Right. It's more useful to think about stories in terms of good and bad. Good stories match the world. Bad stories do not match the world, right? And that's easier to understand. And if a story has a supernatural component, maybe it doesn't have to match the world in a historical fashion to be a good story, right? But if it doesn't have that, so if the story is just like science fiction and people are flying around because we have the technology and we've developed the pineal gland and now whatever. I mean, people write these crazy things. Maybe that's a bad story, right? And maybe not all of them are bad stories, because I think science fiction is more like ancient philosophy than anything else. Right? A lot of science fiction just explores the themes of philosophy better than the idiot so-called philosophers after Plato and Aristotle. That seems clear to me. The more science fiction I watch, the more I'm like, yeah, this is just good philosophical exploration, exemplified perfectly in in Blake 7 or something, which we're rewatching, or Andromeda is a good one because it's more explicit and hysterical, or classic Star Trek. TNG deals with some stuff. TNG is not particularly well written. DS9 is better written. Or Babylon 5. Babylon 5 is great for that. It's all philosophical exploration by a lost little wannabe atheist who can't quite manage it. Sally Joe, it's like myths or frameworks for signals. Yeah, well, they are. They help you put signals in groups that are formy. Yeah, well, the myths help you understand the connection of signals past your existence into the supernatural, right? Because there's always a supernatural component to a myth, would be my argument. Whether I'm right about that, or I'm not 100% certain, but I'm actually like 90% certain. Like if it doesn't, a hero's not a hero unless there's a supernatural component to the hero, right? In other words, heroes have to be endowed with extra human features from a supernatural force at the very least, or they're not a hero. Saving the kid from getting hit by a bus we would call it a heroic act, but in my book, that ain't heroism. That's called Tuesday and What You Should Do, You Moron. So, like, of course you save the child from getting hit by a bus, even if you get hit by the bus instead, right? Or even if you both get hit, but you shield the child from damage and you die in the yes, you're supposed to do. That's called Tuesday. That's not special. Like, I don't understand why I'd have to say that, but I feel like we do. We do need to say that.
One of the things you can do with, I'll say, stories is like compress or expand time in ways, and that gets you more of the supernatural elements to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't thought much about the time compression or expansion and what the utility of that might be, and whether or not that upgrades it to a myth and all that craziness. But you're right. The myths often play games with time, right? And many years passed, right? Wait, what happened, right? And then you have to infer all the normal sort of vagaries of life. It was one of my complaints about actually one of my favorite shows ever, 24. You ever see the show 24?
I never watched much of that one, but I know a little bit about
Yeah,
it.
it was fantastically innovative TV, like really innovative. And of course, me being me at the time in particular, but even now probably because I haven't changed that much, unfortunately, was like, when does he eat? When does he go to the bathroom? They never show that. It's like they're supposed to show the whole 24 hours, what's going on. Right. And I just, and I knew at the time too, like, you're being a jerk. And I was like, yeah, I'm okay with that though. I was just having fun. So yeah, I mean, it was a very innovative show because of that. And but there's still all that implied stuff that it would be boring if you talked about that stuff, right? It would be totally boring. I mean, his life was like in the middle of a crisis, 24 hours of a crisis with a rather cool twist ending, I guess. Um, it was all right. I don't know. I don't know if I could have ended it any better or anything. I'm just saying, like, the ending. It was a standard betrayal ending. It wasn't. And maybe you couldn't have done any better. There's always it's funny, right? Because you look at stories, you go, "Well, you did." No, man, when you're writing a story, there's constraints that just appear out of nowhere. And you're like, wait a minute, now I'm boxed. That's why Stranger Things didn't end well. Because they had written themselves constraints they didn't understand. And I understood those constraints. I was like, I ain't watching this last season. I know it's gonna be crap. And boy, was I right. And everyone's in copium mode, and I'm like, you guys are drinking so much copium, we're gonna run out of the world's supply of copium, which is a good thing because then people have to deal with the fact that, yeah, if you are in a car and you're aimed at somebody, and they have a gun, they're probably gonna kill you, and that's probably the right thing to do. So sorry, bro. Maybe you don't get yourself
Mhm.
into trouble and do bad things, and then maybe bad things won't happen to you. Sally Joe. Turtles win races all the time when they don't nap on the track. It's everywhere. Yeah, well, slow and steady wins the race, baby. And that's what we're on. We're on the slow and steady club. It's real slow, but it's real steady. So, yeah. What do you got for us, Christopher? More questions, more concerns, more. Thanks for the reminder. Although,
Yeah, and I just wanted to come on, remind you about Goodwill Hunting stuff, and just signal that this is a good place to spend time, energy, and attention, and we're doing more stuff elsewhere.
that's true. Thank you. Well, you're doing all the yeoman's work with the game. So,
Yeah, need to get more on that done on that tonight, but yes.
well, hopefully the stuff I put in there will help
Oh
and
yeah, that was definitely helpful.
yeah, well, that's exciting. I mean, if we can make progress on that, and then the book is out, the workbooks are coming soon, like real soon, apparently.
Cool.
Although I don't have any yet. I don't know if they're on their way, to me, the copies that I have or that I'm supposed to be getting, or what. But yeah, everybody, if you're interested in community and signals, you should pick up a copy of the book. Oh, and I didn't check. Actually, let me do that now before you leave. The answer is that this stupid thing logged me out. Oh, I know why. I know why it logged me out. Never mind. I know exactly why it logged me out. Oh, what happened? Oh no, I did the wrong thing. Ah, I have to find. Yeah, that's totally wrong. I have to find out what the status is of orders because I don't know.
I can also signal that Psychic Space Dragon shirts are for sale and you can buy them.
Oh, that's true. They are excellent too. All of this stuff is totally excellent. We have lots of good, totally excellent stuff on the store, which you can get to. The link is in the description, or you can go to the link that is available Via the book. The first part of the book link is the same. But let me see if I can log into this stupid thing. I totally forgot. No, I don't want a stupid passkey. Why is everything like 6 logins to log in? Nope, everything is still listed as unfulfilled. Okay, well, that's a bummer. I thought things would be shipped today, but they were not. Although they might have been shipped and it hasn't been updated, to be fair. So, but yeah, I know I have it on good authority that in fact everything is ready. Printing has been done and we're just shipping. So that's where we're at. We're at the shipping phase of everything. Sally Joe, Copium 2000. Ethically sourced copium, vegan copium. Oh no, Sally's on one of her spirals. Minute away from Symbolic World 2, money and development of robot spiders. No, we're not developing robot spiders. Somebody put a meme with robot spiders on my stupid Discord, and
that was me. I did that.
I should erase this before Sally sees it. So, but I didn't do that, and then she saw it, and now we're doomed. Because she's going to show it to Wallace, and Wallace is going to dedicate his life to building robot spiders for his mom. And you're going to be responsible, Christopher. It's going to be entirely your fault when robot spiders...
That would be true, yes.
And get out of control and take over. It's Skynet, people. Skynet. Did none of you see the Terminator? We could do the Terminator next after we do Good Will Hunting. That might be fun. I'll have to rewatch it and make sure there's enough there. But some movies are not going to have enough for that document. That's for sure. So I will have to weed them out. But we'll do that work. We'll get this movie club thing going, and we'll see if people like it, if they resonate with it. But thanks for the reminder. That was good. I'm just so... Part of the problem is I'm still sick, but I'm feeling better, and I'm doing like 9 things instead of 12, which is a big improvement, but still more than I can do when I'm sick, apparently. And I'm just not registering that I'm actually still recovering from this hellish cold that, to be fair, everyone I know who got it up north was in bed for 5 days, and I was not. So, Sally, if people just wouldn't litter in South Dakota, I wouldn't need robot spiders. Litter's worse down here. Although it got better one day. So funny story. I was told that what happened was the litter in South Carolina used to be completely out of control, like really bad. Like there was litter along all the streets all the time. And because we have water ditches here for the rain, because when we get rain, it rains 5 inches an hour or something for 20 minutes. It's completely nuts. So there's ditches along all the roads. Ditches were just full of trash all the time. And then this college coach, because this is college football country, college football coach was interviewed one day, and he said, "Oh, y'all have a real pretty state. It's just too bad about all that trash." And then like they went on a campaign to clean it all up, and I'm just like, signals, baby, and authority. Who has more authority? The politicians saying clean up your trash, the signs saying do not litter, or the college coach, the successful college coach, praising your state, but then saying it's too bad about the trash? Apparently the college coach, much more power. And it's interesting that that's true, and people never notice these things, like, so right now people are still panicking over Taylor Swift's political position, and in a fluke of retardedness, and I don't know how this happened, I watched a documentary once about Taylor Swift trying to move the Tennessee election and a local election, for like attorney general or something too. I think it wasn't, I don't think it was the governor. I might be wrong, but I don't think it was even the governor election. Right. But she couldn't do it. All the Swifties and like they were explicit, like her father, I think it was her father in the documentaries telling her like, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't get involved in politics. This is a bad idea. And she's like, no, I want to mobilize the Swiftie army, sort of a thing. And the Swiftie army actually flat out told her, no, we're not doing it. So she couldn't move a state election, and people are worried about like her impact on federal politics. And I'm like, you people are dumb, and you don't do your research, or you know how dumb you're being. And see, like, that's what pisses me off. I hate lazy people, Christopher. I hate them. I hate them. I want them all dead immediately. Oh, these people. They're all arrogant. They're all like, well, Taylor will have all this power because he's Swifties and they really, and she's a freaking entertainer, guys. Like, get over it. Entertainers never move politics that much. And when it seems like they do, that might be an accident, you moron. You got to do more research. Like, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Now, this happened once. So one of my uncles was telling me he was taking an MBA or something in college, and part-time sort of thing. And he wrote a paper on this event that happened where Rosie O'Donnell, I think she was on The View or something, and they had Tom Selleck on, and Tom Selleck's an NRA guy, and she went after him on TV about this, and he looked at her and he goes, well, you're the spokesperson for Kmart, and they sell more ammunition than any place in the United States. And she was mortified. And what happened was she tried to get out of the contract. And for some reason, they let her out of the contract. And she went on this crusade against Kmart because she was so angry about them selling ammunition. And what happened is Kmart foolishly, of their own volition, caved. And then they went out of business after that, by the way, dude. Right. You know who the number one seller of ammunition is in the United States? It's Walmart.
That's what I was going to get.
Of course it is. And they got that business because Kmart threw it away like a bunch of retards for no reason. Like, I wouldn't have let her out of her contract. And I wouldn't have let her go on a crusade like that. And I would not have bowed to the pressure because it was all imaginary. And that's what people don't understand. Like, a lot of these protests are imaginary. If you actually look and you do the numbers, and you can, like, this is something that you can do because I've done it. It's not that hard, right? I mean, it takes work and you have to not be lazy, but you don't even need to be really good at data analytics or anything, which I happen to be, but you can just look. Protests on the left, when they protest like a store or something, or they go on the, they ban the store, they never work. Like, almost none of them work. But man, you piss off conservatives and you're going out of business for sure. Almost guaranteed. It's like right in the numbers. Guaranteed too. Because part of it is just conservative networks of people, conservative communities are very intimate and tight-knit. And like, if somebody says something, it carries a lot of weight. But because lefties are always changing their minds about everything all the time anyway, and they sway with the wind, they really don't have a group. And they're mostly identifications against and not identifications for. So the fact that they don't have a shared identity at all, like, if you feel like you don't have a shared identity, you might just be a leftist. That might be your whole problem, right? It might not be, to be fair, but like, number one hit.
On the other hand, Mark, are you sure that's not just the evil populists squashing our democracy?
It's probably a populist tyranny. I keep thinking about that. People, I think it came out in the interview that I did. I hope it did. I hope it came up. I don't remember all the things that came up. They were all awesome, though. This interview is gonna kind of rock. It's gonna totally rock when it gets released. I think it came up where I was like, populism is just democracy you don't like. There's no real definition of populism. That's ridiculous. What they're describing is exactly what the Greeks wrote about as the problem of democracy. Right? And so it's a subtype of democracy. It's not different from democracy. It's a statement of a democracy, like, behaving in a known way that can be dangerous. It doesn't have to be dangerous, though, because I'd argue the thing everyone's complaining about is populism. I'm like, can I have more of this, please? Because if this is populism, I'm all about this. This is fantastic. I'll take 1,000 times more of this constantly. Can we get more somehow? Is there like an increase in populism we can create somehow? Because this is phenomenal. I'm like in heaven over this populism thing. Because you notice who calls it populism and who says it's democracy. It's all leftists.
I don't know about populism, but I'm pretty sure we could increase cooperation, and that might be close enough. So,
yeah, and if you didn't call people populists and put a negative valence on it, you might be able to cooperate better with them. And who knows where that would lead? I mean, all kinds of things could happen. Whole books could be written, right? Whole wonderful books about community that talk about cooperation could be written. Entire zines could be released. Oh, by the way, Sally, I found out they let you put zines in the library in Richland County. So your zine may get some exposure to the good people of Richland County. That would be fascinating. We'll have to put a little card in there that explains where it's from, though, because I was doing a booth at Thunder Bay with with the silly thing that made it work better. I got to catch up on these things. Oh, but alas, tourists are barbarians. It might be the natives too. It's worse in the Carolinas. Yes, it is. The South just needs more robot spiders. Like, there aren't any robot spiders. What do you mean more? You have to have it existing first. Robot spiders run by football coaches, maybe. Sally, increased cooperation could be called populism. Oh, I like that. Populism. Global increased cooperation can only be done through populism. We'll have to run that one by Father Eric and see what he thinks. Maybe he can weigh in on populism. I like that frame though. That's clever. See what I mean? Isn't Sally annoying? That's the sort of thing I should have come up with for sure, but I'm distracted or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I think I should tell Sally that I saw a bird that looked like it was about to litter the other day. And I walked up to it, about to punch it in the face and tell it was how much of a scum of the earth it was, but it flew off. But it didn't come back, so maybe it got the message.
Excellent. See, Christopher's doing the good work of making sure the birds don't litter. How do birds litter?
It was a raven. They tend to do that up here. So.
Oh, ravens do that. Yeah, that's true. Ravens are, boy, they're super smart too. They're unbelievable. That was in the my mother used to have parrots. That was their pretense for stealing all her stuff and erasing her memory. Isn't that wonderful? And my stepfather's memory at the same time. They in the parrot community, they had all these discussions because the science idiots were like, well, parrots can do this and not that, and they're not really using language and all this nonsense stuff that anybody with a parrot or anybody who was around a parrot long enough would know is just science being as dumb as it could possibly be and making statements about things it hadn't actually done any science on, which, man, scientists do that all the time. They're like, well, there's no science on that. I'm like, there's no science on most things. I don't care. Like, I want to know if you've done science on it, I want to know what the results are, but I don't care if there's no science on it. You can't do science on most things anyway. Who cares? So, they would do bizarre things. Like, they were just saying like, no, these words are just strung together and blah, 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 right? And then it's like, but when it's an LLM, they're all like, it's AGI is around the corner. I'm like, parrots are closer to AGI than LLMs, buddy. I don't know what to tell you about that. Like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And the fact that conversation is, it's Weizenbaum, I think, did ELIZA. Look up ELIZA and the therapy module for ELIZA. The same discussions we're having now, we're having in the 70s. Same discussions. There was no AI back then. And neural nets weren't really a thing until the 80s, really. You can get the NASA source code for that. I have it. I don't know what these guys are even talking about. But according to Sally, well, first of all, she thinks it's good that you scared that raven away. Deer litter too, and raccoons, but everyone knows that. Yeah, raccoons are basically trash pandas. Raccoons are terrible. They're also super smart though. Raccoons are scary intelligent. It's hard to understand. What about bears, Christopher? Do you have bears around where you are?
The bears mostly stay out of town here. There are the places that have there's certain parts of the town that are right next to the woods that get bears occasionally. But and there are the places and parts with the bear-proof or resistant dumpster things. But we get moose walking through town more than anything else.
Oh, that's cool. Well, just don't hit them because you'll probably die if you hit a moose. Terrible. Yeah, moose are awful. A moose hit my aunt's car. She's on the highway too. I was like, "What's a moose doing up there?" And it was the rut, but it walked out of the woods close enough to the highway and grazed the car and just annihilated the door. And I think that the moose was okay, but they didn't even see it. And I hit a deer once, although it was mom's car. I didn't have a car. I was borrowing her car. And I've not had a car several times in my life, which is good. It's good for you to experience loss. And I didn't have a car for 4 months that time. So I'm driving home on Route 20 in Marlboro. And, I don't really think Marlboro is a city. It's a very old city, actually, in Massachusetts. And I don't really think about it, but there's this section of Marlboro right on the border from Framingham and Sudbury, right by that border that, yeah, there's stuff along the road, but really there's nothing behind that stuff. It actually is just a wilderness corridor more than anything else. And man, this deer came out of nowhere and he ran at an angle towards the car and boom, I hit him with the corner of the car. He went right up over the windshield and landed back where he came from on that side of the road. And I was like, what the hell just happened? And wrecked the car. It was $8,000 of damage on the car. It was wow. And I wasn't speeding or anything. But it was nighttime and that deer just ran into the car. Hit the front driver's corner of the car. I was like, what is going on? So, and I guess Massachusetts has a lot of deer hits. A lot. It's one of the top 3 states for deer strikes. Have you hit a deer?
No, I haven't, but
my buddy hit one on a motorcycle.
Oh, wow.
Pennsylvania. Yeah. Yeah, I thought Pennsylvania was number 1 for deer strike, but actually around that time, allegedly the number 1 state for deer strike was Massachusetts, which is weird because Pennsylvania is huge. There's real mountains there. There's a lot more deer in the state, and yet it's Massachusetts. Sally, how to notice signals that you are sending. Step 1 for dum-dums, if there was one. What is the step 1 for notice signals that you are sending? Again, you have to look at responses, right? So if somebody I think the primary problem that people have is they're not paying attention to anything at all, really, except what's inside them. And so they don't notice people's responses. And that's actually the magic behind me backhanding people back in the day and them thanking me 10 years later. Because that happened several times, not once or twice. It's a big phenomena. And the reason why it works is because you move their attention. It's the same way you train a dog, to be quite honest. Sorry, but also we're just bald dogs that stand on 2 legs at the end of the day. And we bark funny. That's really all we are. So once you understand that, then Pavlov, or we'll say a true detailed understanding of Pavlov, is helpful. But what's more helpful is to realize that all you have to do to train creatures is move attention. And so you don't smack on the backside of a dog is not bad. It just moves their attention sharply. Sometimes you need to move attention sharply. And I hated smacking my dogs on the ass, but sometimes that they wouldn't stop. I was like, no, you need to pay attention now. Some people flick their ears. I could never do that because I'll touch their ears or their head or something that moves their attention. With cats, you just do pss, 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 right? That sound actually is unbelievably effective with cats for some reason. It doesn't work with all cats, but it works with almost all cats. And once you move attention, then you can give commands, right? But people think like the command moves the attention. No. The valence on the command moves the attention, right? The strength of what you're saying might move the attention. And then the command moves the attention, but it's actually more effective to break that into two parts. And so you have to break noticing into two parts. First is moving your attention outside of what's in your head. And second is processing what happens as the result of your actions, right? It might just be your speech, a result of your speech, which really isn't an action, right, of any significance. But speech can move attention, and then you can look at the reaction from the speech. And you usually get two reactions. So like when you first start talking, first reaction you get is people turn towards you. And that's what people miss. Like, oh, just the act of speaking moves attention. Yes. Right. Or not, which is even more interesting. Right. And so, oh, well, me yelling at the dog doesn't actually change the dog's attention at all, because the dog ignores most of what you say anyway. And the dog knows sometimes when you're yelling, you're not yelling at the dog. And that goes both ways. Some dogs, like if you yell, the dog will cower and thinks you're yelling at it. Some dogs are like that. But that's not common. It's common enough that like you'll see that, but it's not super common. So you need a way to move attention first and then give a command second, and they have to be separate steps. Now, sometimes they can be combined into one, because you can use sharpness in your voice, for example, to move the attention. And then if that's differentiated enough from the command, that can work. I used to do hey a lot to the dogs and then give the command in a quieter tone, because that works better. If you make the way to get attention and the command at the same signal level, it drowns out the command. Not in all cases, but it can. And like I had two dogs, they were sisters, and they couldn't be more different. And one of them was just super attentive and like unbelievably responsive to humans. And the other one will sit in the other room and ignore you. It's just like they couldn't have been more different. And so you need to first get a sense for attention and then get a sense for what you're noticing. Like, where is my attention? And then when my attention is there, what am I noticing? Like, oh, okay. So when people understand what I say, they tend to nod, right? Or they tend to like, you'll get a physical response out of people when they're jiving with you. But you can also get a physical response like yawning when they don't understand what you're saying, right? Their eyes move when they can't follow what you're saying. And I don't do a good job of paying attention to those things myself, because I'm usually the problem is I'm in pattern all the time. So I get caught up in pattern easily, and then I lose my audience because I think they can follow a pattern, because how do you not follow pattern? But also, right. And then when I'm not paying attention to people's eyes wandering, then it doesn't go well. So I'm not.
One other thing about this, I thought, because people are paying attention to things and not the relationships between them.
Right.
And that's where the patterns are, right?
Yes, exactly.
You're not looking at a pattern isn't a thing, it's a relationship between multiple things.
Exactly. Well, it's right. That's the baseline of a pattern, not the whole thing, but the baseline of a pattern is relationship between things. And in order to see that, you need the poetic way of informing the world, right? And that's
Right.
why basically everybody should go listen to the knowledge engine model, which is explains this document here. I did two new ones. I did a live stream and then I did an updated one, but all three of them are useful because all three of them talk about things the same outline in a different way. And once you kind of understand that, you can start to draw yourself into understanding things poetically. And that will automatically start to differentiate attention and signals and information and knowledge for you. Sally Joe, can you break down why wearing pajamas to the store is bad for dum-dums? That's going to go in the manners book, which we are working on. I wrote a whole bunch into the manners book. But yeah, I mean, it is wrapped up in signals, right? So the signal that you're sending is that you don't care about the place, and the place is no more important than your lazy desire for self-comfort. And if every place is no more important than your lazy desire for self-comfort, why be there? And if your value is your lazy desire for self-comfort, I shouldn't be there, because see, these are things that your unconscious actually understands very well and processes perfectly, and your conscious mind may not process well or perfectly. I shouldn't be there, because my presence in your comfort almost certainly interrupts that comfort or lessens that comfort. And so it makes you uncomfortable at an unconscious level to be around somebody in their pajamas in a place that's inappropriate. And this is actually why, like, pajamas in some sense are a good sort of normie form of forbidden knowledge. That's why, like, pajama parties are important, right? Because you're trying to gain intimacy. Like, let's all get, as personally comfortable as we can together and see how it works out. And it's like, oh, okay. And once you kind of understand it that way, it makes a lot more sense why young girls have pajama parties, right? Because they care more about relationships, right? And, young boys will just get together and like have a sleepover and not get in their pajamas or get in their pajamas, but they're just playing with their toys together. Like, they don't care. They're not interested in gossip or talking, right? They're not there to figure out how to relate to one another outside of the relationships they normally do only with people, right? Like, oh, I can play with trucks and with you, and then we can work out how best to play with trucks together, right? Okay, fair enough. Like, that's super important. Like, boys have to do that. But girls are not concerned with, like, how do we play dolls together, right? And they'll play dolls with boys, right? Because they want to understand boy-girl relations. That's kind of ingrained, but it's totally different. So that signal, that forbidden signal of pajama, which says my personal comfort is important here, makes other people uncomfortable because they know that they're interrupting that. And you're a cooperative. See, humans are super cooperative creatures. That's why when they talk about opponent processing, I'm like, why don't you just set the world on fire with gasoline? It was quicker. No, we're cooperative creatures. We need the cooperation and we crave the cooperation. That's what fights the domicide too, by the way. So this opponent processing thing is precisely the way you got to domicide, you moron. Stop being dumb. And it should all be obvious to anybody just by observing the world. So because we're super cooperative creatures, we don't want to cause other people discomfort. That's why dress codes are important, because it removes one signal of friction. If we're all dressed similarly enough, like if we're all in a suit, coat, and tie at work, all kinds of signals come into play. Like, first of all, everyone's taking this seriously. It's so important that they went out of their way to have special clothes, to put those special clothes on that are probably a little bit uncomfortable anyway, because dress clothes tend to be a little bit uncomfortable, right? And to make sure those clothes look a certain way and look good, because those are two different things, right? And that's how seriously they take their job. And so this job must be important. And I'm doing this job, and maybe I'm just pushing papers or I work in the mailroom. But you know what? Look at the importance that I'm part of. Even if I don't dress up, I'm still part of all these important people's lives. And I know they're important because they're signaling through their clothes, through their dress, that this is important to them. I can tell they put a bunch of work in, and not just temporary work. buying nice clothes is long-term work. Right? And then it's like, oh, and then everybody feels more comfortable because no one's sitting there in shorts. I mean, Sarah was telling this story the other day to a friend, exactly yesterday, in fact. They had a casual Friday, a jeans Friday at work, and they had to do away with it because women were coming in spandex and men were coming in shorts. And they're like, nope, no more casual Fridays. And like this shirt, is it this shirt? I think it's this shirt. No, it's not this shirt. One of my shirts, not this one. I thought it was this one. Although maybe this one too, because I got a bunch of Hawaiian shirts. Well, I got 2 Hawaiian shirts, but not in Hawaii. I think this is one of the ones I didn't get in Hawaii, although I might be misremembering. This was from a Casual Friday event. Like they gave everybody, including the consultants, because I'm always a consultant. They gave everybody shirts to be casual on Friday. The other one I have, it says Dell on it, or Dell Equalogic, or maybe it says Equalogic. I forget. So I have one of these shirts that I wear to these things, to these streams, that actually is from a company because they were introducing the Casual Friday thing. It was Hawaiian Shirt Friday, and you could wear jeans and Hawaiian shirts, and that was it. And I don't agree with that. I hate that. I think it's dumb. I don't think people should do that. It's a mixing. It's an inappropriate mixing at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, those signals are super important. And signals sent, signals received version. Yeah, well, again, like you receive it as discomfort for you being there. They send it as comfort for them because everything's got the relationship, right? So there's 3 things. There's your perspective, their perspective, and the relationship. Value public and private code separation creates what? Well, I mean, you've got to know what's public and what's private. And we don't anymore. We've done away, like the equality doctrine does away with all of this stuff. And it destroys signaling. It destroys our ability to signal because it tells us that differentiation itself is bad because we're all equal. If we're all equal, differentiation is bad, and there shouldn't be a difference. Like, you shouldn't know where you end and other things begin if equality is true. Equality destroys evolution. That's why I'm always puzzled when, like, Brett Weinstein is like, oh, equality. I'm like, dude, that would destroy everything you do and everything you've done scientifically would be either ended or wrong. I don't understand why you're down with this. That makes no sense. But I don't think he understands next steps at all, which, to be fair, a lot of people don't understand next steps. They don't get what leads to what, inevitability. They don't understand these concepts at all because they don't see patterns. They don't understand patterns.
Okay. I think at this point I'm going to shift from trying to make this stream better to go about continuing trying to make the world better. And
Excellent.
See y'all later.
Thank you, sir. It's good to see you, Christopher. Have a lovely night. Good luck. Thanks for the reminder. Wonderful to have you. So good to see Christopher. I know he's working hard on our awesome board game coming soon. Soon. I don't know how soon, but definitely soon. Oh, he hasn't even left yet. There. We'll just kick him. Not out of malice, but out of helpfulness. I hope that was helpful. Yeah. Christopher's one of our excellent helpers. Sally Joe obviously does all this wonderful artwork, like the artwork for the book. And the wonderful zine artwork, which is everywhere. Right? All of that is available. And so much more. All the virtue cards. We're going to have virtue card games soon. That is also being worked on by another one of our wonderful volunteers because we're making things happen. We are the place making things happen. We might be the only place making things happen at this point. I'm crushed. I had much higher hopes for a lot more people early on, and my goodness, 6 years of disillusionment really wears you down, guys. 4.5 or so years on YouTube, not making anywhere near the amount of progress that we thought we might be able to. But slow and steady wins the race. So if this is a race, we'll win. I don't know that it is a race, but also a lot of better people along the way. So even if we stop tomorrow, I'll be totally pleased as punch about all the progress we made with people and making them better, because ultimately that's what we're all about. We're all about the world needing you to be better and you making the world better by being better. It's not a magic trick. It's something you have the most control over is yourself. And if you improve one little thing about yourself, you've made the world better. It's awesome. And it's super important. And yeah, I'll have to put a bunch of stuff about signals in the manners book, which is shaping up. Probably most of the material is already written for us. Might need to be reframed or rephrased or whatever, which we'll be getting to. We've got 3 people on that project, so that's good. And, help from a bunch of other people, Sally in particular, right? People poke and put in comments and talk about things on the Discord server. It's very helpful, right? It helps us to flesh out things we need to cover, and that gives me a sense of how to cover them sometimes as well. So that's all helpful. So yeah, it's going to be a busy week coming up for me. Get that movie doc if you want to do the movie club thing, or if you don't want to do it with us, it's still a good exercise. Just make a copy of the Google Doc, fill it out while you're watching Good Will Hunting. That'll be the first movie, and then we'll probably do other movies after that if it goes well. If you're interested in that, comment, tell me what time, roughly what daytime works for you. Won't be next week, it'll be the week after sometime, maybe the weekend is better. I don't know. And tell me whether or not you want to do it on a live stream or you just want to do it on the Discord server. Or if you're like, I don't know what a Discord server is, that's fine too. Maybe we can, make arrangements. If we do it live, it'd be easier because I can just do it on StreamYard and invite a bunch of people. And we'll have some limit to how many people, but it'd be easier. We could do more people if we do it like online, even if we don't do the Discord server. So yeah, let me know what you're interested in, because we're setting that up. We're doing it for sure. I already did all the hard work, I think. So all the hard work is done. I may even watch the movie and go fill that in myself, even though I saw it recently. You can't watch the best movie ever too many times. So since that is in fact the best movie ever, you can watch it again and again and again. All right, guys, it's been a pleasure. I'll be fine next week because we're coming back before Friday from Florida. I don't know if we'll get to the beach. It's supposed to be bad weather too, so it might be limited to cloudy day, pool, and indoor activities. I don't know. We're not near the beach. I think the beach is half an hour away from where we'll be, but it'll be good. Vantk, good night. I hope that was useful for you. I hope that you can leverage it to be more useful. And take care of yourselves and each other and be better. And I'll see you next Friday for another pirate stream. If you have any suggestions, put them in the comments and I will seriously consider them. And I hope to see everybody next week. Enjoy.